Welcome to 365 Brothers. This is Robin Shine, your host. Can you believe we are nearing the end of season 1? First, let me just say, an early happy Thanksgiving. This is our second to the last episode for season 1. We're on hiatus in December. Season 2 will start January 4th, so make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Now, today, we're going to talk with the gentleman who's going to share some favorite Thanksgiving memories. We're going to talk about macaroni and cheese, okay? So you know you want to listen. We're also going to talk about having allies and what allyship looks like. We're all over the place. This guy, oh my goodness, when we spoke, it was such an enlightening conversation. I promise you're going to learn things that you didn't even know you wish you knew. But that's what happens on 365 Brothers. It is a conversational adventure. So I want you to just relax, get comfy, and listen in. And if you are new, let me tell you this. This is a 5-episode minimum. There's only one episode coming, and that's on November 3rd after this, but you've got 44 others that you can listen to anytime you like, wherever podcasts are available. And with that, let's listen in to yet another brother. Welcome. Today, we're speaking with a native of Louisville, Kentucky. He has been in martial arts since the 7th grade, so over 17 years, and he has spent the last 7 years as a professional martial arts instructor. We are having a conversation today with DeShawn Roberts. Welcome, Sean.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you'd like to say about yourself before we go into the questions to help the listeners get to know you better?
I'm the youngest of 2.5, born and raised from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a big gamer. I'm a huge nerd. I'm a very spiritual, or most people seem like I'm eccentric or different. I'm artistic, so I like a lot of artsy things. And yeah, other than that, I'm just regular me.
Did I hear you right? Did you say you're one of 2.5 kids?
Yes.
Explain that, because I haven't seen a half kid before.
Okay, so what I go by that is, so it's me and my brother. I'm the youngest, but my mom also has an older stepson who is older than both of us. She basically took him in when she was 16, so before either me and my brother were even thought of, and she raised him as her own. And I was always raised as that was my older brother.
Okay.
So yeah, a
All
cute thing
right.
with that. I like.
Are you ever going to move on and just say one of 3?
I guess you could say you say one of 3. I tend sometimes when I give the story or talk about it, I always consider myself the miracle baby, because at the time my mom had a series of miscarriages. So when I came, she wasn't supposed to be able to have kids or me. So that's a whole little thing. Like, that's the Pisces in me. I'm a big, I look at the whole universe and everything. I mean, it's a perfect place to be here. But yes. I guess one of 3.
All right.
I'm the youngest, but sometimes I have to do the thinking for them. So I'm the oldest as far as I can concern myself.
I get that. I'm just curious. The next oldest to you is how old?
My older brother, so that would be Ricky. Ricky just turned 36.
So about a 3-year difference.
Yeah, I like to say 2.5 because I feel better about saying that, because he likes it. Maybe that's my lucky number, but
I'm thinking you got a thing for 2.5. I got you. We'll leave it like that.
Yeah, he's 3 years older than that, and he still tries to enforce it now. That's like, you are not my dad. But
right.
Interestingly enough, though, but our birthdays are the same day. Mine's is February 21st, and his is September.
Okay.
And we are polar opposites, though.
Not a surprise. There's a lot of difference between me and my younger sister. A lot of difference.
Oh, so you're the oldest.
I am. And did you hear I said that? Like it's all that? I am.
Nah, I'm gonna have to go with the baby on this one. But
All right, fine. So let's go ahead and dive into the questions.
alrighty.
What is your favorite song, either now or all time, and why?
I'll give you one from personal memory.
Hmm.
I would say it is Mariah Carey. I'm a huge Mariah fan through and through. But it's a Mariah Carey song. It's called Can't Take That Away From Me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but at that time, I believe I was like 13. And that song in particular, even when I tell people why she's my favorite artist, it caught me at middle school was really difficult. And at the time, I was like coming to terms with a lot with like sexuality and just figuring out who I was. And I was really, really depressed. And there was a time maybe once I ever considered suicide, and I heard that song, and it really spoke to the situation that I was in, like everything that I was dealing with and trying to fit in and dealing with things going around me. And that really, I guess, in my little 13-year-old mind at the time, that saved my life. And
Mm.
it was even more special because like when I followed her documentary, and at that time I'm also reading her book, but she was going through something at that same time. So it's kind of like we connected.
The spirit of the song resonated with you, and then because of who she was for you already, it just really made a difference.
Yeah, and then from then on, she became like my number one. And after that, nobody like better ever say anything bad about. I will ruin our friendship after that. Like, okay, yeah, we can't be friends.
I got it. I got it. She's in your heart for life.
Yes,
Cool. What's your favorite childhood memory and why?
I would just say favorite childhood memory as a blur or as a whole. It's just my memories at my grandmother's house. She used to have this really big black and white house that uh, once upon a time, all of her children or grandchildren, for the most part, lived or stayed there once upon a time, whether it was for school or somebody was staying there temporarily, it was there. So just the love and the memory of that house was is my favorite moment. Like I go, it's burned down a few years ago, but just looking at the lot, sometimes it gives me that feeling. Like I remember being loved. Like my grandmother was one of those genuine spirits that she could
Yeah.
meet anyone on the street. And it doesn't matter if you were homeless, it doesn't matter what you did, but she took them in. And if you did right by her, you were good enough and she treated you like family and nobody can tell you anything different. So I think that's where that from being in that household, that love was instilled for me for people. So
So I'm going to press you on that. So give
mhm,
me what's an example of a moment that you had there that stands out?
Thanksgiving was always a big one. So because like my grandmother, she was before she used to have her own restaurant, so she always cooked. So it's just the smells of the prep for Thanksgiving and just picking like I like to pick greens and being like you the grandkids, of course, you be able to like get little samples before the meal is before the meal is supposed to be prepped. So just those moments of seeing her in the kitchen cooking and all of my aunts and around. And I
Okay.
guess that it's the smells like if you're I'm Southern, so the smells of you're smelling the greens and the dressing and the turkey and everything, and it's that excitement of the next day. Like I can't wait till I can eat.
Yes, yes. So you're talking about Wednesday night at the food prep.
Right. So like, and that's every holiday. But mainly Thanksgiving, that's the big spread. So Christmas and those, but mainly Thanksgiving because grandma goes all the way out. And
Okay, so now I already know. So tell me what among your grandmother's dishes, tell us your favorite two and why.
that is so hard. Let's see. Hate to be so okay. One, cornbread. Cause as a kid, I'm Southern. I have a really big sweet tooth. My grandmother would make it where it's sweet, but not too sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just enough for like kids would eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And even to this day, so like I cook sometimes for a muffin, but like, and I'm a little bit better than my mom. she will even tell you that, but in case she hears that. But but I some ideas. The cornbread was one. It's kind of like a toss up between her dressing and the macaroni and cheese. Like if you're a Southern, if you know everybody's mac and cheese is not good. You can't eat everybody's, and that could make or break a meal if it's
Oh,
bad.
oh, okay. See, I'm just gonna jump in right here because I got to tell you, I became the designated mac and cheese person in my family. So all was going well. Everybody looked forward to my mac and cheese. OMG. And we all have a specialty. My mom is the greens. My grandmother was the dressing. Now it's my aunt. My aunt's potato salad. Uh. Now, here's the problem though. See, I had a gas oven and I didn't realize that there was something going on with the heating. So okay, now I'm really gonna tell on myself. And I don't cook a lot. I cook on
Mhm.
the stove. I don't really cook stuff in the oven. So basically, my mac and cheese was jacked up. Can I just say I will never live that down?
Oh,
Oh,
that kind of reminds me of a situation like maybe about 5 years ago. Um, I lived with two of my roommates at the time, and my roommates were from New York, and the two of them they had lived together beforehand, and I was closer to one before we moved in, but I was looking for a place and so were they, so we all jumped in together. It was the older one, it was his birthday, but he's normally the cook. So, and it was a really stressful time, like money was not flowing in, and it was just, but we always made it, we made it work and we made it ours. Because we don't have much. We were caught up on bills. I was in school at that time, and it was a lot. Everything was tight. So, but we wanted to just try to make moments like that special. So we're trying to cook. We're surprised that one of us tried to make a cake, and we're rushing in, but trying to also do this as a surprise when he's at the store doing something. So I do try to make my meatloaf, and I'm doing this and then helping it, and I think I put like way too much like sauce and not enough like breadcrumbs. So my
mm-hmm.
meatloaf is like falling apart, and I'm like so devastated because like one, the oldest one, he was the cook in the house. He made sure like no matter how mad everybody was at each other, we made sure everyone ate.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate to tell him, but I was like, okay, he threw down. So now this is my time, so I never cook. I'm the smart one, as they said in the house. It's me to kind of show off, like, okay, I'm smart. I can cook. I just don't. So then for it to mess up and my meatloaf to fall apart, he's like, yeah, this is why I'm the cook. He's like, this is why I'm the cook in the house. But on top of we're trying to surprise him, the fact that y'all did, I was like, well, thank you, but yeah, y'all 2 days early. But we were panicking, trying to rush it. They're like, what? My other friend, he was the youngest. He had lived with him before. He's like, I told you, well, if you knew his birthday was this day, why would you let me go through all of this? If you knew, you let me convince you that his birthday was today. He's like, I thought you knew. But so we're blaming each other for the bad cake and the bad meatloaf that didn't happen. And we still had to let the oldest one fix it. So it's like he was the alpha in the house. So they and approved he's the alpha because we just butchered this meal. But
Uh-huh.
it was a fun time. But yeah, I definitely
Well,
would never live that down.
oh my gosh. Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, I am definitely because I got to recover here. I can't cook. Look, I just can only cook certain things.
Right. See, and the thing is for me, I can cook because I called my mom. I was there. It's like, Mom, what did I do wrong? I always make it right this time. I said, maybe you used too much? Like, it's happened for like, no, I'm devastated because he's never gonna let me forget that.
Mhm. Now, I want to talk about accomplishments. So I asked this question in two parts.
Hmm.
First, an accomplishment that means the most to you personally, and then an accomplishment that others seem to be impressed by. It's the one where they go, oh, or wow. So let's start with the one that means the most to you personally. What is that?
Could it be that if they are kind of, they go together?
Yeah, you know what? For some people, I used to say that in the question. I would say, for some people, they're the same thing, and for others, they're different. And then I dropped it, but yes, it can be the same. Go ahead.
So I guess that would be for me. my most professional or personal accomplishment that I'm proud of is earning my black belt and becoming an instructor. And usually when I say that, I guess maybe because it's from Kentucky, and a lot of my friends are surprised that a black man does martial arts.
Mm.
And they see things on TV, and like my ex, she would literally say, "Oh, they seem like one of those YouTube clips, sometimes people blowing on people." And she was like, "Please don't tell me that's what y'all do every week. That's what you're doing. Y'all in there blowing on each other." But that is a big surprise for people, and because it was something that I started when I was young. I've always been into martial arts, but when I found my instructor around middle school, I was dealing with like bullying. And it wasn't that I could never defend myself, but what happened is that at the time I got jumped and there was like gangs and they were trying to basically force me to be in the gang. And
Mm.
after that, like I was like nervous. And I was always been a short guy. I'm only 5'7".
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like cliche, but just how you seen the Karate Kid movie, I didn't want to be afraid anymore. From there, it taught me to be more confident. But the reason why earning my black belt is probably one of my biggest accomplishments because when I did do it, I went away to college. But beforehand, my senior year, I suffered a really bad knee injury. I tore my ACL, my MCL, my TCL ligaments,
Mm.
and before this, I had never had so much as a sprained ankle, anything, broken bone in history. Like, and at this time, I'm running track and field. I was ranked in like number 40 in the nation for hurdles.
Mm.
And senior year, I can't run. I can't do this. I'm on crutches. I'm on wheelchair. You're taking senior pictures, and it's just not good.
Mm.
So, needless to say, one of the times I remember the therapy visit, physical therapy visit with my mom, I'm asleep in her lap, but I kind of woke up waiting in the waiting room, and the doctor's talking to her, and he was like talking about me just recovering. He's like, "Well, he's young, so there's a chance that he can recover good, but he may not ever walk the same, and he may not ever play sports again at all." At the
Wow.
time, my mom never knew that I woke up. I was just still laying there, so I heard everything. But
Mm.
being that fast and to not be able to run was a huge thing for me.
Mm.
So, and this time, so I'm going through this, and I kept pushing myself, and then I couldn't really afford as much physical therapy, so I had to stop and do everything on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a series of tragedies. So I don't want to make it too long, but the main thing is like I had a cousin who was the same age as, well, a year behind me. He was like my yin and yang. He was my push. When he passed away, I lost all drive. I didn't think that I would want to go there again. So to
Yeah.
go through and finish it, it was something like I not only owed it to myself, but I owed it to him to finish that. So that's a very important thing for me. And then especially for me, I never saw myself as a teacher. And most people, when you get a black belt, they think that's the end of the plateau, which I didn't add. I'm a second degree, but I really began to learn more once I became a teacher and working with kids. Beforehand, I was so adamant with my instructor, like, I can't do this. These kids don't listen. They're bad. And what if I'm doing it wrong? But I stayed with it, and like my kids love me. Unfortunately, through the corona, I can't see them like I want to, but that really changed my whole philosophy more once getting my black belt. It's like it's amazing this what you can see when you now can affect the next generation after you. I see the mistakes that I've done, and the fact that how much they look up to me and they ask those questions, and little kids just giving them, I know why I did it. So having someone to know that they care, it means a lot to them. So it's kind of like, in a way, being an instructor, I know that in some way, shape, or form, if I leave this earth, I have a legacy in one way or another. And that,
I totally get that. I'm an educator, and the difference, and you don't have to be an educator. Like I mention that a lot on my podcast because it's, what I do. I've been in education for 30 years. Um, but whether it's, as simple as just a kind word to someone who's having a down day, like you don't have to be an educator or a martial arts instructor, but those interactions where you really just allow someone to be heard, understood, and then to encourage them, it makes such a huge difference. So I love that that's what you've chosen to do with your passion is to share it with others. I know from an earlier conversation with you that the particular martial arts that you do, I know some of my listeners may be left wondering, well, what does he do? Is it Kenpo? Is it what is it?
Yes.
So can you just say, just, not too much, but just a little bit about which one you're in and why you chose it?
Okay, so the correct terminology for it, I am part of, and I have to name drop, unfortunately, but Keith Price School of Wing Chun. So it's a school of Wing Chun Kung Fu. So from there, he basically blended the arts of Wing Chun, Kempo, and Aikido, and it's called Magic Hands. So that is it's a blended style of Wing Chun that incorporates all three of those styles, and it's basically about like any Ip Man movie or Steven Seagal, and that'll give you an idea of what he do.
Okay.
The reason I like this style, like I've tried multiple ones, but one, it's more realistically based. Two, a great thing about anybody can do Wing Chun because it's not a style that is based on strength or size where it really makes a difference. It's actually meant for being sensitivity and a smaller opponent or being a smaller opponent. So it works great. Like I said, I'm only 5'7" and I weigh about 150 pounds. Also, a key thing for the ladies out there, Wing Chun the style was actually made popular by a woman. It was a Buddhist nun. If you look it up, and it's a
Mm,
great movie about that. So women, it's great for them if you want to take it up.
all
Uh,
right.
all
Wow.
right.
Well, I must say, congratulations on being a black belt, and that would indeed sound like an amazing accomplishment. So let's talk about words. What's your
All right.
favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book, and why?
My godmother would always say this to me, but this is when it really sits out. And then when I say it to other people, they love it. Let's see if I can get it right now. It's joy is not an emotion. It's a decision. I choose to have joy.
Mm,
It's simple, but and people understand like what does that mean? For me, it's like no matter what is going on in your circumstances, and whether with what's in what's going on in society in the world right now with all the social injustice and just financially everybody's struggling right now, but we can still choose to be happy no matter what's going on. Still choose to have that joy, not about what you have or you don't have what you like. That's a constant. I wake up and I'm happy, or I have this joy because I choose to not be burdened down by what's going on around me. And I think that just remembering that and reminding ourselves of that is a great thing. So that is one of my favorite quotes.
one of my favorite things is choice. It's so underappreciated. One of the subjects I teach is economics, and economics is really the study of choices.
Mm-hmm.
And, how are you using your resources? Time is a resource, and you can choose how you spend your time. And we often think about how we spend our time in terms of the activity, the doing of our time, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
don't spend as much time, or we don't talk about how we spend our time in the being of it. Like, are you going to be pissy? Are you going to be sad? Are you going to be happy? And I do get that no one's happy all the time. I love it when I get sad. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna put on my music. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna indulge it and do all of that. But then I'm choosing it. Like when I do it, it's like, oh, you know what? Right now I don't feel good. I'm choosing to be kind of pissy, or I'm choosing to be sad. And when I choose it, it doesn't last as long versus resisting that I'm sad. And then it makes choosing when I'm joyful so much more fun and
Mm-hmm.
so much more often.
The second one too, I forgot. Just a little one is by Malcolm X. Never get mad at someone for not thinking the way that you do, because at one point in time you didn't think that way either.
Sweet. That's a good one. Yeah, I really like that. Mm, thank you. So now,
Thank
Sean,
you.
is there a person, conversation, moment, or event that stands out as either changing the trajectory of your life or having a significant impact on your life?
This wasn't the one I was thinking of initially, but it's really big. I was in New York. I was 30. I was decided to stay with a friend of a friend. And I'm wondering how clear I can get into depth with this, but little to kind of brush it off, I was basically drugged and police were called and everything else. And this person just went because things did not go their way, uh, sexually, I guess. They kind of went flip mode and they put in so they had police call, but I had to go navigate all the way back to this destination to get my stuff. Now, from sitting there, I was waiting in outside for like 2 hours. Like I slept like in the outside for like 2 hours and in a stairwell. I had never had to really endure that because the person would not give me my things, my phone's there, all my identification, all my clothes. I'm in New York. I don't want to call my family because I don't want them to be alarmed and I'm older to take care of myself. But the key thing is like I had to rely on the kindness of others. There was this Hispanic woman who gave me a blanket and a sweater because it was cold. It's New York. It's cold as hell around December. It's in February, and she was just telling me she had went through that experience. Like these can be cold. Like, do you know where you're going? Like, I don't know. At least said that I had went on like on a humble but trusting someone like so I barely have enough to either get a room or get a flight home. I can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, I did that. The guy ends up calling the police again for some bullshit. But when I tell him the truth, they know that he's just being nasty. So he forced him to give me my stuff. But a key thing, it kind of goes back to what it taught me a lot. Just it was a very humbling experience because I told you before, my roommate was from New York. When he was 15, he told me a story of, and he's in a much better place now. But he was young. He's like that he would be homeless, and he would ride the subway trains, sometimes until he got figure out where he was going. But at that time, I'm 30. I was so depressed and like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm dealing with this. But it was an eye opener. Cause like, wow, this is my friend who did this for a couple of years at 15 and I'm 30 and I can't deal with it for 2 hours. But it made me like it really humbled me to like what a blessing and a privilege that I have that there's so much more people out there are people out there to deal with things day to day that we take for granted from by having a warm place to sleep, by having someone that you can call, by having, just by not being mistreated. So that was a big eye opener for me. Like, and I've always been nice to the homeless or the less fortunate because that's my grandmother who raised me. But in that moment, I was able to put myself in their shoes for a brief, couple of hours in a day, where pretty much that day I was kind of floating around.
So and you can tell me if I can put it in this way or not, but so do I understand then that you were drugged and there was a sexual assault?
Attempted. Yeah. That wouldn't have been my first time though. I guess because I was drugged, my body went into I panicked because I didn't feel safe. But I had been a victim of that in the past before. Like once as a child, another time when I was like 19. For that to happen, like my body just kicked in like fight or flight, like I don't feel safe. There was like lady, I'm like, no. And that's where the police ended up being called and everything else. So it was a big thing. But oddly enough, God just put that I did not expect that part to come up. But I don't look at it as really as sad as I don't want it to sound morbid or like a depressing moment. But for me, it was such an eye opener. It made me appreciate life more and my circumstances and value others. And especially if to meet my friend that to know that and have like his spirit, you would never know that is what this person endured.
Yeah. That wasn't what you had planned to share, and then that's what you did share. And I had the experience of being drugged and sexually assaulted myself. And when you shared that, I want people to know just how it's not it's not at all uncommon. It's so maybe not the drugged part, but the assault that happens in our country. And I say that here because part of the purpose of this podcast is to expose the violence that happens between police and people of color in particular, and then Black men very specifically. But as we're having this conversation, I'm realizing, well, I don't know about realizing, but it points to how much force and violence happens in our society. Like it just points to that backdrop of it, that there's so much more of it than is present in some cultures. Some cultures don't have this as endemic in their society.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I think that's the hard thing with Black culture, especially at least, especially when I was younger, that we are also taught to, for some reason, we don't always speak out about things. Like it's like to deal with it, and you keep it in the home, and you don't. It's almost as if it's embarrassed that it happened. It's like because it's a sign of like we can't be weak, we have to be strong. So even with speaking about it, a lot of times like it's kind of like a blow to even admit that like, oh, you happened, as if it makes you weak or makes you lesser. So a lot of people that I've spoken with, they don't talk about those things because they feel like it makes them a victim still, again,
yeah,
by having to speak and say it out loud.
right. You know, it's a shame. It recently I had a conversation with someone, with a friend, and he had listened to something that something James Baldwin had, one of his interviews, and what stood out for him was the way James Baldwin kind of turned it around. And he said, you know, and again, this is a reinterpretation. So you're hearing it third hand from me. But
Mm-hmm.
the point was that instead of looking at it like, why aren't we accepted, from the Black perspective, like, what do we have to do for white people to get us? And it's like, well, what if it is, what's wrong with white people that they can't seem to see our shared humanity? What's wrong with this culture that shared humanity is so difficult to be? It's such a hard thing to seep down deep into the roots and soul of this nation and its people, which goes back to what you were saying about being, you know, how we don't talk about having been assaulted, things like that, because it's as if we are taking on that, oh my gosh, yeah, I was a victim, versus, no, let me tell you about this crazy fool.
Mm-hmm.
And I even want to take that back. Like, the part of me that's compassionate doesn't even want to say crazy fool. Let me tell you about this injured soul who was so lost, desperate, and in despair that this guy tried this, you know, or this one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's not all men, but it's just, if we could shift it a little, it would allow a lot more power.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing. What was it? The sociology class that come up. I think it's talking like the burden of representation, and that we as minorities tend to have to wear that. That's a privilege that non-minorities don't have to deal with. So like we see something bad happen in the news, I'm pretty sure we all Black people, most of us have probably said this, and it's bad, and you don't know who the suspect is. Like, I hope he's not Black,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and that's because and that's because of when something happens, we are also labeled as what that incident in the or that person in the media is like. That's what we have to wear. Like all Black people do this, or we have to make that narrative that not all Black people do this. But as a majority, the whites don't have to do that. Like, if they can say we can wear the narrative that all Blacks are gangbangers or this and all the negatives. But if statistically, hopefully this doesn't have to be cut out, but I'm trying to say this the best way.
No, I
But
got it.
you have serial killers and things of that nature who are predominantly white. They don't have to wear that narrative. Why is that? So why do we have to wear the negatives that one person or an isolated group of our people do, but you don't have to wear the negatives for yours?
You know, you're just right on, and I really appreciate you saying what you said, because you're right. When and this actually goes back to a wonderful episode I had with a guest named Pap Johnson. and it's slightly different but the same. And he basically said, he's 6 foot something, I don't know, 6'5" maybe, but whatever it is, people see him, they see he's tall, and they go, "Hey, did you play basketball?" And the thing is that in his lived experience, he's noticed that a white person of the same height doesn't get asked that question. There's not a presumption of basketball, which is a lighter version of the same thing you said, which is, all blacks are criminals, all blacks are threats, versus, I don't, when I walk down the street, I don't see a white guy and go, "Oh my God, a serial killer."
Exactly.
Cross the street before this potential serial killer gets me.
But that's the thing. Like, even when we don't act on those things or try, but we still have to worry about, if we don't think that about ourselves, we also have to
Hmm.
be reminded this person may think that. Like, um, this is my, I think this is one of my freshman. It wasn't freshman, but anyway, it was a college course, and this is shortly around the Trayvon Martin incident. And I get this older white female. She meant it in a good place, but it shows where the mental state of a lot of people are. At the time it was fall, it's cold, I have on a hoodie. The Trayvon Martin case was really big at that time. One of the things we were supposed to actually do for a class was to do political protests, so which I was wearing hoodies purposely. But she's
Yeah.
like, and she makes a statement. She meant well, but I want to say what she's like, just don't wear, don't wear your hoodies at night, and if you do, don't put your hoods on, because I don't want you guys to get shot. And she meant so well, but she was she had
Yeah.
to be like maybe 80.
Hmm.
And but the fact that you have to say that, and you think that that's different, why does it, like, why should I have to worry about what I'm going to be comfortable and
Yeah.
warm, I can't dress a certain way and be cool and be warm because I might get shot, because I may look, and the only reason you're telling me this is because you're not speaking to the white majority of this class.
Yeah.
It says that, and she meant well. Like, I could tell, like, but the messed up, like, it's not our fault that you think that we're savages, or we're going to attack you. I should be able to
This,
be comfortable.
I had a great conversation, and I hate this interview, by the way, because there's so much in it, and my episodes are only like 50 minutes to an hour, and I know all of it's not going to stay, but it's all juicy, so I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I
uh,
know, like, I'm so because
it's
it's
okay.
like I said,
No,
this was
no, it's
not point.
good.
We're going places that I didn't expect for us to go.
Yeah, no, look, this is why I call it a conversation versus an interview, because it really is a conversation, and it's fine for me. Like, that's the best problem of all for me to have, is that I have too much good content. Ah.
Yeah. At
So
first, I saw the questions. I'm like, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to fill this in. This is going to be so dry.
no, it's a conversation. Um, what I got about, oh, I don't know, 25 episodes in, was just how much Black men have to manage for other people's fear.
Mm.
That, there's no freedom to be, dress, speak, walk as you wish. I mean, you can, but there are certain things that are going to trigger other people's fear perceptions. And so then I just realized how much Black men are, those who are, that a lot of times when they would talk about, I make sure people are comfortable to talk to me, or and I'm like, wow, wow, that's a lot of work. Like, when are you free to just be?
Mm-hmm.
Even for myself, I fell into this habit of relating to Black men as different versions of different stereotypes. Yeah, there's the good ones, there's this ones, there's those ones, and them those over there ones, versus,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like, there's no there's just not a lot of places where you can just hear Black men being Black men, and just their life, like just their joy, like your joy in being a martial artist, like just that.
Because I think that's the hard part. We are so having to be categorized as just a certain thing, and that's both within the community and outside of it. It's like a question I always hated in school is, or anywhere, if they ask, you're one of few, and they ask, can I get the Black male perspective? And they ask you that question, and that's so like, that's one of them backhanded comments that people don't realize. Like, I don't speak for every Black male. I speak for myself as being a person. This is my experience as a Black male, but I can't speak for everyone.
Right.
And we shouldn't have to wear that burden. Like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, then this is what you think every Black man thinks. But we also have to monitor like how we speak. If we're loud, if we're seen as aggressive, or we're this, and
Yep.
we're just passionate people. Like, no, we should be able to be who we are. Like, I should have to fix how I speak to be seen a certain way. Like,
You know what's funny is right now it's been on different news channels and for sure on some of the late night comedian shows. But there was a Trump supporter um, wearing a shirt that said beer and something else, blonde hair, and he grabs the mic from a a voting registrar and starts yelling, the Biden this, Biden. I mean, he just looks crazy. Okay, and the thing is that I don't think white people look at that and go, "Oh my God, oh man, a white man doing that. Oh man, he's making us all look bad." They're just like, "Look at that crazy fool." And I think they don't get that that doesn't, we don't have the privilege of just going, "Oh, look at that crazy Black man." It's like, "Oh man." And the other thing you said was, I would like to just say to any listener, imagine if I'm in a grocery store and I turn to a white woman and say, "I'm just curious, do white women eat?" You know what I'm saying? Or do white women, can you tell, what do white women, like, it would just be ridiculous. No one, like, what do you mean, do white women? I can tell you what I do. And it's so obvious, but it's not as obvious for, the majority culture when they think about minority cultures.
exactly. And it's hard sometimes we have to weed through those that, okay, who is, as we would say, who is trying it and being offensive, and who is just really just oblivious to that. So like we have to register that to like, okay, should I address this as a level 2 or should I respond as a level 7?
I love that. I'm stealing that. I love that. If that's been said before, if that's going around the culture, it's you're the first I'm hearing it that way is from you, and I love it. What level racism is this? Is this just like low level implicit bias, or is this a number level 10, like
Red
race?
alert. Yeah, because you think that like, okay, you're not racist, you just don't know any better. You like you have bad people skills to know not to ask those questions, or you're generally want to be an ally, but still have your own implicit biases. So it's like, okay, yeah, no, but if you really think about it, we have to deal with those day to day with interaction. Like, is
Yeah.
this right? And then like, so, and when you say something, is this racist? No, but that's racist, but that's unintentionally racist. So I'm gonna give you a pass. You're blatant. That's blatant, but that's a 3. So I'm like, okay. Oh, you're really left field. So now I gotta now I have to air quote show my color because you're doing the most. Like
Yeah.
now you're making me uncomfortable, too uncomfortable.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. 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 Okay, we better get back to this, or we're not gonna finish.
Yes, those back.
Really enjoyed.
We're gonna avoid the level 3s. If you ever come back, we can talk about the levels on another cast.
Yes, yes, indeed. Okay, so then, so what is a moment or event that highlights your experience as a Black man in the United States?
I do love Barack Obama. That moment of him being
Perfect.
elected that shows that we can be more. So for even if I will never achieve that, it gives hope to little young boys that we can be more than our circumstances. So that
Yeah.
moment was like, this is something that we work for. And although I don't think that we're there quite yet, but if I look back on it, things are getting better than when it was when I was a kid.
How did you feel the moment that he won?
It was almost a place of like disbelief. And I remember my mom and my grandma talking about seeing it. I never thought that we I would see that day. So I was like, are you serious? We really have a Black president, a president, somebody who looks like me
Yeah.
somewhat, that I can identify with, someone who my nephew can grow up and look like it's like. So when they say, I want to be a politician, I want to be the president, it's not like a saying, I want to be Superman. It really is like saying that you can really be anything that you want to be.
I love that you said that. I actually have forgotten that if I heard a little kid say, a black kid say, I want to be president in the year 2000, I would still keep hope alive. So,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that Shirley Chisholm ran for president in 72 and Jesse Jackson in the 80s, I believe. So, I knew it was gonna happen at some point, but it was like if a black kid said, "Yeah, I want to be president someday," I would never roll my eyes because I would be faithful, but at the same time, I'd be like, "Mm-hmm."
It's like you got a long way to go. I'm hoping for you.
Uh-huh. And so his achievement of that, I do get what you're saying. It actually makes the possibility of doing anything and being anything real.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that goes back to I guess it kind of gives me that whole. It gave me that whole like childlike dream. Like I dream like anything can be possible as a kid. Like it was that for a moment I still had that childlike moment. Like wow, dreams really do come true. Things can really happen. Like
Yeah.
we really will overcome someday.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you. Have you had any interactions with law enforcement?
The one we talked about earlier, but the first one with law enforcement, I was about. I wasn't even in middle school yet. Probably maybe sixth grade, if that, fifth
Hmm.
or sixth grade.
Okay.
We're playing tag in my neighborhood, hide and seek. So we obviously, if people are unfamiliar with tag, somebody's you chase the other people, you try to tag them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember distinctly in this one moment, was night, and we were running. One of my friends was chasing us. I think it was me, three of my friends, and two of my cousins. And they stopped us, and where the police stopped us at to ask us questions, and like because we were running around as if we were in a neighborhood that we grew up in, so everyone knew us. Immediately assumed that we had done something wrong. My friend spoke up about something. He was a little, maybe a year older, and I remember him. But it was a fast food stand. It was like at that time it was still like the concrete tables that were outside.
Oh,
So I don't want to
yeah.
say he slammed, like he's ended up shoving or like slamming my friend who's probably 11 or 12 years old into this concrete table because he asked like, why are you stopping us for? You don't have a reason. Like we're just playing. Like don't touch me. You don't have to like right to touch me. I'm not doing anything. And he shoved him like really hard. He hit his back, and my friend crying is like, because you're asking us questions like you're basically berating and attacking 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 10-year-old kids for playing a harmless game of tag.
Mm-hmm.
And to say those things to give this narrative or paint this idea, now these are the same people that you want us to feel comfortable that if something bad happens, call you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one of my first, experiences, with the law enforcement. And as a kid, that's very triggering. Like most people, it kind of creates a fear of police or
Yeah,
a conscience or fear of being black with police. No.
absolutely. I know that they still have officers come into the classrooms of second and third and fourth graders and give them a lighthearted lesson about, reporting things that happen and all that. And so, you're in school and it seems like, okay, so when something goes wrong, these are the people I call. And then you have an experience in real life where these people seem like they are out to harass, harm, or terrorize you. And
Mhm.
and then, what are you left to think? Like where are you safe?
And I think that's the thing. And I don't want to see just because it's not just a narrative of all cops are bad because they're not.
No.
And it's not just and I want to say it's not just white cops either. So for some reason, it's
Mm-hmm.
more not about black and white, but it's more about being not being blue. That's like it's not gonna put any color. It's about not being blue. there's a level of when they feel as though that position of authority that they can do anything, and especially to Black and brown bodies because they're less likely to be scrutinized. It's almost like you got bullied, you were a bully, and now you get to be a bully with little to no repercussions.
Well said. And again, I do appreciate you saying it's not all officers, but it's just that there's something in that culture that seems to get passed down, and that it's not just about white officers. It really is about this culture of domination. It's especially so in our poor communities. And
Funny thing, I do have friends who are on the force, like through martial arts. And it was
mhm.
kind of so bad. I was walking this day and the car goes past me and it circles around. I'm walking onto my street and I already had to go to the bathroom. So like I'm breathing like and I see him and they're like, oh my God, thank God it was you. Like, why would you do that? He's like, made you nervous, didn't it? I was like, yeah. But
That's
I'm like,
wrong.
thank God it was you. But it was that feeling. I actually made a post like there is something about being a Black man that having a police car eases up on you. And I'm like, there is a certain type of angst that goes through you.
If the United States was a woman, whether mother, lover, child, stranger, neighbor, whatever, and you could speak to her, what would you say?
And I've looked over this question a lot. The only thing that really came to my mind so far is like I just to tell it sorry. That I am so sorry for everything that is happening on your ground. I only imagine how much pain. If the United States is a woman and we are our children, to see your children so like broken, it
Hmm.
has to be hard. So the only thing I can really think of, I would say I'm sorry and just offer a hug or empathy. And then maybe I can ask to her like, how do you feel like this? Because if I'm your child, mom, how do you feel?
Hmm. Something in the way you said it and explained it, it's the first time I really got someone seeing the United States as a distinct entity being scarred by the horror. Like you take full ownership of being a legitimate child.
Hmm.
So, Sean,
Hmm.
what is love to you?
One of the most misused words in a dictionary, I can say that. But love is an action and it's a constant action or even a call to action. Like when you love something, you kind of move a different way than for something that you don't really care about. And that's trying to not make it so romantic or normal, but like, or diminished, but giving a broad term. Like if you love a certain show, then you set across that time and isolate that time to make sure that you see that show and you tune into that and you block out those things to fully soak that moment in. I think that's the same thing with love with people. When you do something that where express that love, you kind of move differently for that person, like to and fully enjoy and fully take in that person and not just the good parts, but all that person is.
Yeah.
Even if I feel like whatever I know that is better for you, I feel like when you love someone, you do the better, what is ever necessary to make that situation better, even if it doesn't directly benefit you.
Right. So, what is something you've learned through your profession, training, experiences, or adventures that you believe more Black men should know? And I ask that question knowing that whatever you say, it benefits every listener, regardless of race, gender, sex, ethnicity, and so on. But what's something that you believe more Black men should know?
I think I'll go back and touch on that it's okay to just be you. The issues that I see a lot of younger, even some older, have is that they're trying to be the norm or the role or idea that's prescribed or that to us and told us that we have to be this certain way and that you can't cry, you can't this, you can't this. So we all these things you have to be, and that it boxes us in to a certain mindset. And I think that we have to get out of that norm or get out of that mindset that we have to be like the next. It's okay to be the individual. It's okay to think for yourself. And it's because a lot of times I think that a lot of Black men, they think that they think for themselves without knowing it. Like they do things, if you really watch me, do things and you ask them a question and they might do things off of being socially constructed to be that way and don't even realize that they're fitting a norm, but they're thinking they're being free thinkers. I think
Yes,
so.
I just gotta say, it's true. It's brilliant. Whatever anyone gives as an answer to that, it's soul to soul. Now, Sean, now that we've had you and I this conversation, what are you taking away from the conversation for yourself?
I wish the conversation didn't have to end because it's like I feel like I've made a friend and I've really felt like I feel a lot more connected and hopefully that I do connect with so many more people out there because this is, like I said, this touched in places that I didn't think to go. What's the word? I'm very excited, but it's not the word. I just feel fulfilled, if it makes any
Nice.
sense.
Wow, that is so awesome. Every year, a friend and I, we choose a word that will be our word for the next year. And and we just had that conversation last night. And her word for next year is abundance. And then
Hmm.
I said, my word for 2021 is going to be fulfillment.
Hmm.
And so when you just said that you're feeling fulfilled, it's like my word is already in action. So I'm really touched by what you said, and I appreciate it. You are sensitive in all the best ways because it is such a strong kind of sensitivity. It is, things can appear on a spectrum, right? Like, so you can have sensitive on one end and strong on another, like as if it's brute or something like that. And with you, you marry strength and sensitivity in a way that allows you to be fully open and in communication. And I so appreciate what you brought. And when you're right on. I'm like you. This conversation could go on for another couple hours. There are so many places that we could have taken the conversation and didn't get to just because the episode is an episode.
Mhm.
But I really appreciate your taking the time and sharing yourself so authentically. Thank you, Sean.
Well, thank you for having me. Again, strength and sensitivity. That is the art of Wing Chun. See, maybe we're onto something. I'm trying to say.
Uh-oh.
Thank you for listening to 365 Brothers. Certainly hope you enjoyed the episode. I encourage you to subscribe. Please leave a review. I want to know what you think. Also, if you know someone who would be a fantastic guest for 365 Brothers, please direct them to our website, 365brothers.com. You'll also find all the episodes there, 365brothers.com. And your support is welcome. And remember, to listen is to love.